Good evening, friends. Tonight, by the quiet crackle of the fire, we bring you a story not just to entertain, but to stir something deep within your soul. This story is about choices, change, and the mysterious way life, and sometimes God, offers us a second chance. Set in the 1980s, it's a tale of redemption and transformation. In the autumn of 1987, in a sleepy town called Jackson, nestled in the heart of Tennessee, lived a man named Ray. Folks in Jackson knew Ray. Some feared him, others pitied him. Most just ignored him. Ray wasn't always this way. There was a time when he wore a badge, a proud officer of the Jackson Police Department. But that was before the drinking, before the night at Maple Street. Ray was only 32 when his world collapsed. One night in 1982, a routine stop on Maple Street turned into a scuffle, and his partner, Officer Glenn, was shot. Ray blamed himself, though no one else did. He left the force the next week and never picked up his badge again. The years that followed weren't kind. He lost his home, then his wife, then contact with his only son, Jesse. What began as occasional drinking turned into daily benders. By the mid-80s, Ray was renting a dusty basement apartment from an old war widow named Miss Loretta. He paid cash, no questions asked. By the time the fall of 1987 rolled around, Ray was a ghost in his own town, an unshaven figure in a brown coat who sat alone outside Joe's diner with a flask under the table. But that fall, something changed. Something, or someone, entered Ray's world again. It started with a knock. It was a Thursday. Ray remembered because Thursday was the day Miss Loretta baked pies for the church. She never knocked. This knock was sharp, purposeful. Reluctantly, Ray opened the door. There stood a young man, maybe 16 or 17, with eyes so familiar it made Ray's knees weak. "Dad?" Ray's mouth dried. It was Jesse. There was a long silence. I found you through Grandma's old letters. I just wanted to see you." Ray felt everything inside him collapse. Shame, fear, disbelief. Jesse had grown, taller, stronger, but those eyes were the same. Ray didn't know what to say, so he did what he always did. He shut the door. Jesse stood outside for a full minute before walking away. That night, Ray didn't drink. He just sat on the edge of his mattress, shaking. 2 weeks passed. Ray watched the front porch like a hawk. Jesse never returned. One evening, just before Thanksgiving, Ray went to Joe's, not to drink, but to think. Joe, an old friend from the force, slid him a coffee instead of whiskey. "You look like hell," Joe said. "Maybe it's time you start digging up instead of down." Ray didn't respond, but something in him shifted. The next morning, he woke up early. He shaved. He threw out the flask. He even walked to the church to ask Miss Loretta if she needed help. She nearly dropped a pie. Ray spent that weekend helping her sort old books for the winter charity drive. For the first time in years, he laughed. It was small, but it was there. He didn't know it, but Miss Loretta told Jesse he'd changed. On the first snow of December, Jesse returned. Ray opened the door before he could knock. "I'm sorry," Ray said before anything else. I was scared. I figured, Jesse whispered. They sat together that night in silence. But it was a good silence. Ray made hot chocolate. Jesse stayed over. It was the beginning. Over the next weeks, Jesse visited more often. He brought school books, then photos of his football games. Ray showed him his old badge. Tarnished, but still proud. One day Jesse asked, "What really happened to Officer Glenn?" Ray told him how Glenn had stepped in front of a bullet meant for Ray, how Ray had begged God to take him instead, how he quit because he couldn't forgive himself. Jesse sat quietly, then said, "Maybe it's time you forgive yourself. I already did." That winter, Ray started attending AA meetings. He fixed up the basement. He even got a part-time job at the local library, sorting returned books in the back. Jesse came every weekend. Then came spring. Ray stood one Sunday morning at the small church near downtown Jackson. The congregation whispered. He walked to the front and cleared his throat. "My name is Ray, and I've made mistakes, big ones, but I'm here to ask forgiveness from God, from this town, from myself, and if there's still time, from my son." In the back pew, Jesse stood. "I already did, Dad." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Ray's story didn't make the news. It didn't need to. He wasn't a hero to the world, but he became one to Jesse. By 1990, Ray was volunteering at the local youth center, helping kids stay off the path he once walked. He never wore the badge again, but he earned something better: respect, peace, and his son's love. And maybe, just maybe, God's grace. Life doesn't always offer second chances, but when it does, it's up to us to recognize them, to hold them tight, and to become someone worthy of the gift. Ray's story teaches us that redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about transforming it. It's about showing up. It's about saying, "I'm sorry," and meaning it. Tonight, we remember that change is always possible. Even in the darkest corners, a light can flicker back on. If the story touched your heart and would like to listen to more like it, you know where to find us. Good night.